John Mark wrote the same.
I can even
the sayings or actions of
that
Jesus.
the synoptics
Wait, the same. Wait, John.
that Luke and Matthew have a common author from Mark. Simple as that.
Is it recording?
You keep interrupting me. You keep interrupting me, right? I'm asking you.
Are you gonna cry?
I'm not gonna cry.
Okay.
So the point is, that's why I want to move on. Because you're
gonna move on. I'm gonna stick you on it.
Right. Why does John? Why does John Mark? Why?
You already answered your question.
I'm critiquing the contents that Papius is describing for the Gospel of Mark and the Gospel of Matthew.
If you're gonna critique it,
are you gonna let me finish? Are you gonna
let me finish, man?
Quick, why?
That's why we'd rather talk with you.
Do you want to have a time discussion?
We'd rather talk with you.
Do you want to do a time discussion?
No, we're adults. Okay, so
Adults that can hold to.
My question is, he couldn't answer, right? The point is this: Papius.
You just don't know what the burden of truth.
There's no way what it means.
You see, Papius
they argue from silence. This is great.
Papius is describing the contents, that is the Gospel of Mark and the Gospel of Matthew. And he says that John Mark wrote everything what Peter remembers of the sayings or actions of Jesus, of the Lord. Right. So he has the caveat actions, sayings or actions. So when he describes the Gospel of Matthew, when he mentions the sayings, it cannot be understood as actions or narrative.
Can I respond now?
Yes.
So again, the expectation of evidence for you is to demonstrate that within Papius' writings, he gives the exclusive statement that it's not a narrative's gospel. That's my first point. The second point is the possible account of why we would say that he's saying that the actions and sayings of Mark is being recorded within his gospel is because he's collecting from eyewitnesses.
That's your assumption. So you have to
That's just giving it a possible account.
As the brother said, you have to prove from the Papias paradigm.
No, I don't.
You have to.
No, I don't.
Because what you're doing is
Explain why he
argument
has
from
to.
silence.
Explain why he has to.
What you're doing is argument from silence.
That's not correct at all. Nope.
That's not what
I think you know
we're not.
I think you know this, Thomas.
Because we are saying that you're posing within your hypothesis, within your reading of Papias, that he intends to give an exclusive statement of what Papias means when he says that it's a sayings gospel.
Okay.
Now, I'm saying that because you're not justifying your reading of the text, if I can posit an alternative, that just being that there's a different type of gospel being written within Matthew and Mark being a contemporary and Matthew being an eyewitness, then we can understand that he's just going to say it's a sayings gospel, although it includes a narrative.
Why does Papias make the distinction between the
answered
contents?
you.
No,
Why does Papias make the distinction?
He doesn't.
Can you let me complete? I can even get Papias' statement from Eusebius.
Okay,
Do you want me to bring it? Do you want me to bring it?
Go ahead.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Yeah? Do you want me to bring it? Because okay, you're going to have to argue. Wait, hang on. You're going to have to argue that the contents of Mark and Matthew is identical.
No,
yes, that's what you have to argue.
The type of
That's what you have to argue. That's what you're going to have to argue.
No, you're not.
Okay, thank you. Barakallahu feek. Okay. Let's go to the main part here.
So I like this. I want to talk about Quran preservation in a second. This is going to be great. Can't wait to bring this up.
If they can't prove it, just move on.
Yeah, move on to the Quran.
Well, because there's no two notions that would contradict within this given
This is what the elder used to
hypothesis.
say. When Mark was the interpreter or translator of Peter, he wrote down accurately everything that he recorded of the Lord's words and deeds, but not in order, for he neither heard the Lord nor accompanied him. But later, as I indicated, he accompanied Peter, who used to adapt his teachings for the needs at hand, not arranging, as it were, an orderly composition of the Lord's sayings. And so Mark,
notice what you just said there.
right? And so, wait 1 second. And so Mark did nothing wrong by writing some of the matters as he remembered them, for he was intent on just one purpose: not to leave out anything that he heard or to include any falsehood among them.
Okay, notice what you just said there. That besides from John and Matthew, which were eyewitnesses, his compilation of the text came from other people that knew Christ, and that's why he's outlining a distinction. Not that they don't contain the same contents, but rather the composition is different.
Okay, so first of all, that's about John, which Papias, we don't have any surviving fragments regarding what he said about the Gospel of John.
Okay.
So he's only talking about Mark and Matthew.
Yes.
So you're it's got nothing. It's not correlated.
Yes, it is.
The second point. No, it's not. Second point. Second point.
Unlike the other Gospels,
let me complete. Second point.
Second point.
Second point. It's a good thing. Second point. Who are the elders?
The elders would be with the elders of the church.
Who? Name one.
We don't need to name them.
Why? Why not?
Because the elders of the church are just referring to the people within the church.
Who are they?
Like, for example, in Revelation 5:8, when it talks about the elders in heaven.
No, name them. Name them that transmits back to Peter.
Why would we need that? Why would we need that?
Oh, right.
You're just
hang on.
You're just,
so I can.
You're just appealing to hadith
I can get a
science.
statement from a group of 20 men, and that's it. You're
exactly
going to believe in
what
it?
you guys do in
You're going to believe in that transmission?
No, it's just that he's just saying that the means to which Mark is receiving
Why does Papias inquire by the elders?
Why are you interrupting him?
Why does Papias
Wait, you're interrupting
inquire by the
him.
elders?
So does that mean that I can interrupt you now?
Okay.
Keep quiet when he's responding. How about that?
Why does Papius
So
inquire
if
about
you
the
actually
elders?
understand the patristic language, elders is just referring to the people within the church, like the hierarchy of the
I'm not
church.
arguing about that.
No, you're not. But I'm just saying that the reason why he's talking about the elders is because he's saying the means to which Mark receives
who are
his.
the elders?
You're
And give me the
interrupting me.
names.
You're interrupting me. David, now interrupt him.
Interestingly, to interrupt him, so never trust Muslims when they copy things into notes because they're liars. What you should do instead is actually appeal to rational real source text. So, interestingly here, when it talks about Mark, this is in Papius writings, it says here, a tradition regarding Mark, who wrote the Gospels, which he, Papius, has given in the following words. And it says here that the presbyter spoke, so it says here, it was not, however, in the exact order that he had related the sayings or the deeds of Christ. So it's not an and,
That's
it's
Mark.
an or. So in
He said or, not
talking about.
Hold
You
on.
don't even know what you're talking
In
about.
Mark, it's either or. So it doesn't mean both ends. So if you're insisting that Matthew has to be a both and an and, with in the writings of Papius, with
Yeah.
Mark it's an either or.
So
you're wrong.
Right. So
now keep quiet.
Now does Papius,
and now we're moving
I know
over
you heard, David.
to Hadith
so
science.
the point is this.
Because
The
I
point
want
is-
to know something
no,
about
no,
Hadith
no, no,
science.
no, no. The
We
point is
answered
this.
you. Now it's my
The
turn.
point is this. Who are the
With
elders?
your
Give
Hadith
me
science,
give me the
you
transmission.
have your supposed
Give me the names of
methodologies.
the-
Now you're
by
just
which
moving.
you determine-
Notice how you just now moved, right?
Exactly.
So firstly,
No, I haven't
you
moved.
initially
You're the one that brought the elders.
you just moved.
You're the
You
one
just
that brought
moved.
the elders.
Now you're applying. So initially, you critiqued Papius's interpretation of what the Gospels are. Now you're moving on to the Hadith science are being applied to Mark and Matthew.
Wait, hang
No,
on.
it's not.
You brought up. Wait, one second. He did. I did.
Something interesting.
He hasn't even said the word.
You know.
You brought up. Sorry, one second. You brought up about the elders. I
No,
didn't.
I didn't. You asked me a question about the
No,
elders.
no. You said about the elders.
You asked
Go
about the
on. Okay,
elders.
go ahead.
You just asked
Okay,
about
fine.
them.
So give me the names of the elders.
I can give you
Papius
that.
received from.
I can give you that. Papius was a disciple of John the Beloved, and that's
Prove it. Prove it.
What do you mean prove,
Prove it. Because Eusebius, he had the physical book, and he said Papius in his preface does not say that he was an hearer or an eyewitness of the Holy
That's
Apostles.
a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Now read
We
it.
went
Read
through it.
Eusebius.
We went
page
through
1.
it. We went
Can you
through
read
this.
it? Can you read it?
We went through
Show
this
me.
already.
Irenaeus.
Show me
Correct
that.
Irenaeus.
Show me the
That's a
quote.
lie.
Okay, I'll prove it to you.
He's going to go on his notes and read it wrong.
Yeah.
Guys, let him
Okay,
prove
thank
it.
you.
Oh yeah,
Let him prove it.
find in the notes, not in the actual source
What
text.
Eusebius does, Eusebius corrects Irenaeus.
Let him
Because
prove it.
Irenaeus is only
And listen,
testifying.
that's wrong.
Irenaeus?
That's
Wait,
wrong.
one second.
Okay.
Because
That's
Irenaeus
wrong.
Prove
is
it.
only testifying what he heard from
That's
the
wrong.
Asiatic churches.
That's
He
wrong.
mentioned that against heresies.
That's wrong.
So he doesn't have a direct transmission.
I have the quote from
Irenaeus
against heresy.
claims to be from Polycarp.
Prove it.
In fact, the only source that says that Polycarp, John, and Irenaeus are in a chain is Irenaeus himself. That's the common critique.
Just,
So why
of
does
liberal
Irenaeus
scholars.
go by what he heard from the Asiatic churches?
Show me.
He says it. Oh my goodness! Can you bring it up, please? Can
It's
you bring
called.
it up?
You know.
He hasn't read it. He hasn't read it.
No.
You guys have not read.
Do you know
Guys,
what?
I have the quote. I have the quote.
You know what? You know what tanking? Do you know what?
Word up.
Please bring it. Please bring it.
Do you know what? Do you know what tanking a source is?
Okay, here.
You know within academic.
Okay, here. Where does it say?
Eusebius.
No, you said Irenaeus says he got it from the Church of Asia.
Yeah, he'll bring it. He'll
No,
bring
you
it.
said Irenaeus.
Damn.
He'll
So you
bring
know where
it.
it
He'll
is.
bring it. No problem.
Okay, here's the quote. Where does it say?
He'll bring it.
Okay.
No problem.
So your claim was that he only received his
Try and find
information
it, man.
from the
he
church.
only
I can keep trying.
testified with the Asiatic
Okay.
churches said.
So he only received his information from that church.
Yes.
Okay.
So why would he use the church, not Polycarp, who had direct
Exactly.
access?
That's the question.
But
So we're gonna
within
be-
liberal scholarship, a common critique of Irenaeus is that Irenaeus is the only one that claims succession
You're
from
only appealing
Polycarp.
to tradition, but the transmission doesn't
No,
suggest
Polycarp himself within the book
that.
Against
So why doesn't
Heresies claim
Polycarp
that.
quote anything from the Gospel of John then?
Well, because does he need to?
Yes, he
within,
does.
Within,
Imagine, you're the
within book
student of John the
3,
Apostle,
because
and he doesn't
within
quote
book
anything from the
3,
Gospel of John.
because within book 3, chapter 1, he actually says that within the bosom, John is receiving revelation and
Yes.
writes his gospel.
Yes.
So why is
So
it?
we'll bring
Why
that
is
text by
it?
the
Why
Asiatic
is it
churches.
that Irenaeus claims a succession from Polycarp and that he actually affirms
We'll see,
the writings
we'll
of John?
We'll see.
So you're going to give me.
Now he's stuck.
So I'm going to tank you a source.
No, he's bringing the
I'm going to
evidence.
tank
Don't
your
worry.
source that stipulates that he only
Right.
received his information
Right.
from this church.
And after that, we're going to talk about Hadith science
No problem.
and how it's a load of baloney.
Okay.
And how
one question.
Well,
You're a Christian. You're a Christian.
we are indeed.
One second.
We are indeed.
One second.
I want the statement
What's the question?
So, brothers and sisters, what we're discussing about is the church tradition of the Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Mark and Matthew, which they received from Papius through Eusebius' work. Okay? And Papius described that Mark, Peter's scribe was John Mark, and he wrote everything what Peter remembers of the
Quran
sayings
was written
or
in
actions,
1924.
okay, of
Good
the
nice.
Lord.
Yes.
So that's the point.
It's been changed 100 times.
Papius describes the Matthew
Yes.
is the saying of
In
Jesus.
fact, my friend has 10 Qurans over there.
That is
That's incorrect.
That's where they
Taking
get the
occasion
tradition
from
of Mark and
Papius,
Matthew.
the illustrious
Bring it
disciple
back
of the
there.
apostle
You
who
compare
leaned
what
upon the
Papius
bosom
described
of
it.
Christ.
Yeah.
Put it
So
under the
Papius
gazebo.
The Gospel of
is
Mark
the
and Matthew,
disciple of
that
John
they are
who
relying
leaned
on
And who is
upon.
this?
is not
What's
the
the writing?
same gospel.
That's actually a quote from
described in
Papius.
Mark
And what's the whole writing?
version.
What do you mean? Like,
What is this whole letter?
Oh, that's the New Advent. It's the fragments of
Papias,
Papius.
Papias, okay?
Yeah.
Part 10 or 11.
I don't remember.
Down a bit.
Oh, okay.
10 and
No. It was over here. It was 9. The illustrious disciple of the apostle who leaned upon.
Damn, I thought you guys knew something. You're still trying to find it. Keep going. You'll find it one day.
So again, I want to reinforce that the tanking of what we're going to read from you is that he only receives his information from the church, not that he receives information from the church.
Muslims make arguments for exclusivity when there is none to be made. They can't read, and as a result, when it comes to interpreting text, whenever they read something in isolation, they therefore espouse that it means only this particular possibility is the case. Now, if I apply this to the Quran, for example, when Allah calls himself in one ayah the All-Merciful, then in the other ayah the Almighty, if I was reading this like a Muslim, I would assume, wait a second, over there he's the All-Merciful, but over here he's the Almighty. That means that he's only one at a time. But no, two things can be true of one thing at different times. So it doesn't have to be a either or, but it can be a both and.
So it says only, yeah? So it says only he received revelation.
No. I'm talking about there would be no exclusivity. You guys need to read better. It's that simple. Now, hadith science. While we're waiting. So, you guys claim that you have a capacity by which you're able to faithfully transmit words and sayings from your prophet that apparently come from God. Now, I need proof that even if I grant you, all right, there we go.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair.
And the word only is
Papius
missing.
himself.
All right.
This is from Eusebius, the history of the church.
Great.
But
Which
Papius, 3.19, page 101, history of the church. But Papius himself, in the preface to his discourses, by no means declares that he was himself a hero and eyewitness of the holy apostles. But he shows by the words which he uses that he received the doctrines of the faith from those who were their friends. So what is Papius doing? What is Eusebius saying? Eusebius is saying that he had an actual work of Papius, which literally says in the preface that he himself testifies that he was not a hero or an eyewitness to the apostles, and he's correcting Irenaeus.
Incorrect. So,
Now please bring evidence.
wait, hold on a second.
That's a point.
Ask him.
Okay, so notice that writing is speaking specifically of the preface.
We give evidence.
If in the preface it's not mentioned, we have evidence here, where in other texts it is. So the matter is not clear.
Now I'm going to be the Asian.
Hold on a moment. Hold on a moment. Just because it is mentioned that in the preface he does not claim to be a direct eyewitness of the apostles, that doesn't mean that elsewhere in the writings he doesn't, and we have the elsewhere over here on the side. We have the elsewhere in the fragments of Papias in chapter 9, where he says that he was a disciple of the bosom. Simple.
And again, so there's a lot of issues within the early Christendom. Pardon?
They failed to provide. Imagine, oh, you got it from the elders.
Where?
Who exactly? What name?
BRB.
Our Hadith tradition. When it comes to the Quran, we know the names.
Okay.
The names of the transmission. Imagine if I say
He legged it. He legged it.
Imagine
Yeah, it's 'cause of the
Quran-
council, you
imagine the
idiots.
Quran, it comes from the Sahaba, generally, and we don't provide any
So-
names who transmitted it. You would say,
So-
why should I accept it?
No.
Right? So yes, you did.
So no-
If I
so-
say, okay, the Prophet.
There's no
Wait,
internal.
wait,
Can I
wait,
respond
wait,
to what you just
this
said?
is my argument now.
Okay,
listen, no,
so
I'm gonna
you're
make it
no, so you're not
convincing
gonna allow
So-
you're not gonna allow me to
look at them.
respond.
When they critique about the Quranic transmission, And if we were to make the claim that the Prophet, that the Quran that we have today is transmitted via the Sahaba, via the companions, do you know what their natural question would be? Give me the names each and every transmitter. You're not going to accept it of the companions.
We don't appeal to
so
that.
I'm going to hold the same standard to him that when Papius said he received from the elders, does he name the elders that is transmitted that goes back to
because within
John
the
Mark? The answer is
within
no.
the patristic tradition,
You read that, and at the same time, Papius, the bishop, sorry,
Yes.
let me, okay?
Yes.
So you said that Papius never claimed to be a hearer of the
You're going
disciples.
by Irenaeus.
Huh?
You're going by Irenaeus.
No, this is.
he's just talking about the.
This is Eusebius.
Yeah, and by the way,
Okay.
your quote from Eusebius is talking about the
I don't think you've
prefix.
with all due respect, I don't think you've read ecclesiastical history, because you know what Eusebius mentioned? There were two Johns, two different Johns.
There was.
John the Apostle and John the Elder, John the Ephesus.
Yes.
So he's correcting Irenaeus. He's not going to support your case.
No, it's
No,
not,
okay.
because both of them are disposing a hypothesis on what John
That
wrote
Philip the
who.
apostle dwelt in Hierapolis with his daughters, already stated, but it must be noted here that Papius, their contemporary,
Yes.
so Papius is a contemporary of Philip.
Read in the light of what he said in the beginning.
Because he
What
says
did he
that
say?
No, you
in
can't
the
cherry pick.
in the prefix.
No, I ain't cherry picking.
No,
It says
he
very
says that
clearly
within the
that Papius
prefix.
himself-
So
That was
external
within the
attestation.
I'm gonna
Okay.
drop it, because
So
they've got
for
some
example,
comprehension issue.
do you believe
No, I'm
that
gonna
the subtitles
No,
of, for example,
no.
the Gospel according to Mark? Do you think that's reliable?
No, it's not reliable.
Okay, good. So the prefix, which is external from the actual works of that, do you believe that that's equally reliable?
Okay.
For example,
So Irenaeus,
let me
hang on.
just say one thing.
Okay, go on then.
If I say the Quran does not mention Jesus in Surah 1, does that mean the Quran does not mention Jesus at all? No, it just means it doesn't mention him in Surah 1.
No, it's a negation. Yeah. That's a false equivocation. He's negating.
Well, no, actually, it's in the prefix.
Eyewitness.
Well, no, that's just within the
So-
prefix. So,
so
for
here-
example,
no,
do
here he
you
says-
agree that?
Wait. We're not making an argument from silence.
Exactly.
No,
Negation.
you're not.
making an
Can we
argument
actually
silent.
control formally this discussion? So the work that he quoted from is saying that within the prefix he never claims to be a contemporary of the apostles. My apologies. Now, do you agree that the prefix of the Gospels, so for example the subtitles, the Gospel according to Matthew, do you believe that's reliable?
Oh, I know his argument. No, of course not.
You don't. So why would you equally then say that the prefix and also the external attestations of his works
Excellent question.
is true?
Excellent question, because that is the proof that you go by. This is not my.
It's not the proof.
Yes.
I-
My argument is, Papius, it cannot be relied.
Okay, so do you know what you've just committed there?
Hang on.
You've
No,
committed the
one second,
fallacy
one
of
second.
you've
You're
committed the fallacy of composition. You're just saying that because Papius is wrong in this way, he's wrong in his totality.
Good.
By the way, you understand that the church?
Do you know Richard Balcom?
No.
Richard Balcom himself, who he himself engaged with Bart Ehrman, and he actively wrote a book to refute Bart Ehrman. Do you know what he said about the Gospel of Matthew that Papius mentioned? Papius made a mistake, and he's a Christian. So you're asking me a
does
question.
that then mean?
Yeah, you know
have a
what he
Christian-
made a mistake
You
about?
have a Christian.
You know what?
You have a Christian.
You know what?
Wait.
You
You
know-
have a Christian.
the umbrella?
You have a Christian that relies on Papius' testimony, and he admits that Papius made a mistake
And
about
what
the
did he
Gospel of
make a
Matthew.
mistake
No.
about?
The
What
question
did he make a mistake
Are you
about?
all right? Calm down.
So again,
I'm all
so
right.
I just want I want you to formalize your
No, my
critique.
point
Can
is-
I
No, right.
can I enable you to formalize your
Allah
critique?
says in the Quran, "Hadu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin." Produce your proof if you're speaking the truth. Now, what is your proof? Is it the Quran? No. Your proof is the Bible. Your proof is the church tradition. I'm only using your proof to substantiate. I'm using your proof
Yeah.
to show that what Papius is speaking is baseless, and you've got nothing to.
So do you know what you've just committed there?
What did I commit?
You've committed the fallacy of composition. To then just contest, and again, let's just assume that your critique on Papius is correct. To then just assume that.
Did I say Papius is correct? I'm saying
Incorrect,
you believe Papius is
incorrect.
You believe Papius.
No, but what does
you
that
believe
mean?
Papius is correct.
Of course.
Right. So.
But do I believe?
I don't.
Are you going to interrupt me?
Wait, one
No.
second.
You've just spoken for 5
No,
minutes,
no.
and now
Thomas,
me to respond.
Thomas.
You keep on speaking over me. So next time you speak, I'll speak over you.
Composition fallacy.
No.
Forget about that.
No, that's what you've just
Did I
committed.
ever say-
You've just
did
committed
I-
that.
did I ever-
You've just
wait,
committed the fallacy of
Thomas,
composition.
Did I ever say? Did I ever say that I rely on Papius' testimony?
No,
You do.
I do,
I'm
but
critiquing
do
Papius'
I
testimony.
believe that Papius is infallible? No, I don't. But to this then suggests that the reason where in areas of Papius that I'm referring to, he is correct or not, to then just appeal to areas where he isn't is the fallacy of composition. Just to pick out within his corpus of writings that he's wrong does not mean that he's wrong everywhere within the holistic simplistic reading of his text.
So you're conceding that Papius made a mistake?
No, I'm just saying that. No,
because you said
I'm saying no.
fallacy of composition.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
one
saying
thing.
formalize.
So are you wait? Hang on. So
Yeah.
are you saying that Papius' testimony is correct?
No, I'm saying.
No. Answer the question. Do you believe Papius' testimony about Mark and Matthew is accurate and correct?
Okay, so
Yes.
I am,
Can you
but
answer?
no, 1 second.
Can you answer?
So my critique
It's
of
yes or
your
no?
argument,
Yes or no?
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna say
Now,
yes.
explain to me.
No,
explain to me,
don't
explain to me. Wait, hang
run,
on.
don't run,
Now,
don't run.
Now ask me the
My friend,
question.
allow me
Now
to
ask
respond
me the
quickly.
question.
So,
Do I believe
what
in
you've just
Papius' testimony?
committed is the fallacy.
Muslim.
Look, you want to interrupt him? Okay, you
As
will
a
allow me
Muslim.
to respond
As a
very
Muslim.
quickly. Okay, so let's just say that we formalize your critique. Okay, let's just say we formalize your critique. So, point one, Papius, in claiming that he was a contemporary of
Where
the
did Papius
apostles.
claim he was a
1 second, 1 second. So, okay, point one.
I'm going to stop every claim
No,
that you made it
okay.
wrong. No,
I'm still
gonna
manning
stop
your
every
argument.
place he's got it wrong.
So, point one, the claim that Papius.
That's
Okay.
critiquing. You
Yes.
know, critique. I'm
Okay,
critiquing.
wait.
Now,
So, point one,
Go
if
on,
you
point one.
interesting.
Go on.
Point one,
Go
the
on.
claim
yes.
that Papius is a contemporary
Yes.
of the apostles is incorrect. That's your point one.
No, is that what you believe?
No, that's your critique. I'm about to prove that your critique commits the fallacy of composition.
Right. So my critique is that what Papius is describing the Gospel of Mark and Matthew
Yeah.
does not mirror what you have today, and therefore what you're relying on for traditional authorship is baseless.
Wait, so you're going back to the initial critique. Wait, so you're going back to the initial critique that he is positing a sayings gospel and not a narratives gospel. Okay, where within Papius' writings
Do you see,
does he
am I
negate?
the only person who argues about this? You have scholars who argues that the Gospel
Okay,
of Matthew that
demonstrate-
Matthew is describing is not in line with Matthew.
Demonstrate within. Demonstrate. You keep on controlling the discussion.
I'm gonna
So
demonstrate.
demonstrate that Papius negates the possibility that within Matthew's corpus of writings it includes narrative.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, when it comes to the Gospel of Mark,
Yeah.
that Papius described,
He
that
says
this-
or. He does not say and. He says that.
Are you gonna let me complete?
No, you keep on interrupting me, so I'm reciprocating the courtesy that you gave me.
Oh, okay. But I'm going to critique every point that you make. So the point
He
is,
says or.
right. The point is, John Mark. You believe John Mark wrote everything what Peter remembers of the sayings or actions of the Lord,
Yes.
right? Okay. Now, do you believe that Peter was a first-hand eyewitness
Yes.
of Jesus? So he doesn't need to rely on hearsay.
Correct.
Now, if you open Gospel of Mark chapter 1 that you have today,
Yeah.
was Peter present at the baptism of Jesus?
No.
So how could he? So this is not first-hand eyewitness.
Does Peter know John?
Okay, let's open up.
I don't think you understand what eyewitness accounts.
let's open up.
I don't think you know
Let's
what
open up.
eyewitness accounts.
Okay. Let's open up.
Wait, 1 sec, bro. Listen to me.
open up.
So I don't think you actually understand how eyewitness accounts work. So firstly, Peter is in the living memory.
He's a recorder in court.
Yes.
Eyewitness of the thing that
So-
happened when they
So
Right.
because Peter knows John, he's of course going to know events of his
That's not what
birth.
John Mark says. John Mark
Okay.
says that he wrote everything what Peter remembers of the sayings or actions of the Lord. And I
Yes,
asked-
and he knew actions of the Lord from speaking to other witnesses
So I asked-
of the action
Right, so I asked you, is Peter a first-hand eyewitness testimony?
of Christ. Yes.
So does he need to rely on hearsay?
He needs to rely on, for example, when it's talking about the birth of Christ and John, the people that were witnessing that event.
Hang on. Does the virgin birth mention the Gospel of Mark?
No.
No. So that point is.
I'm giving you examples.
No.
So, for example, within his prefix,
Actually, Andrew, the brother of Peter, was around for the baptism of Jesus.
Take the mic off. It's fine. No problem. No problem. Take the mic off.
you want to end it there? That's absolutely fine, my friend.
No. It's for them. I'm gonna carry on speaking to you for like 2 minutes.
So, you're gonna not interrupt me when I speak. So you are giving me a false dichotomy. Firstly, and that's my mic.
Oh, it's yours.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was
should.
one of them.
Yeah, you
So
should.
you believe that?
Take it out of the rent.
So you believe that this is based on Peter's
Hold it.
testimony?
Hold the umbrella. I don't care if I get rain.
Yeah, no problem.
So you first. No, hold on.
So you believe
Yes.
you believe this is based on. Oh, my phone is playing up because of the rain. So you believe that Peter, who was an eyewitness of Jesus,
Yes.
he recorded the sayings and the actions of Jesus, everything
Yes.
that he remembers.
Yes.
Could he have remembered at an event that he wasn't present?
He would remember speaking to the people on that event.
Right. Is that what John Mark is saying?
Well, yes, because
Sorry, is that what
he is
Papius
speaking
is?
out within his corpus of writings when he's writing about Christ.
Again, it's the argument from silence because I'm only going.
Yes, you're arguing from silence.
No,
You're essentially
you're arguing from silence. I'm not.
you are.
No.
So whenever Papius is talking about the contents of his writings, that's going to be everything that is within his writings. That's your
How
argument.
can I remember at an event that I wasn't there?
Because he knows the people that were there.
But it's so it's a hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
No, that is a hearsay.
That's not hearsay.
Hang on.
Is the hadith science hearsay?
It's
Is the hadith science hearsay? Is the hadith science hearsay?
No, it's not hearsay.
Okay.
And that's what
Were the people that transmit the hadith always present at the events of the
So
hadith?
what is John Mark describing? He's describing that Peter remembers, not Peter hears. Peter remembers of the sayings or actions of. Right, 1 second. Actions of sayings of Jesus. Now, you believe that Peter was a first-hand eyewitness.
When it comes to the actions of Christ.
Why would Peter want to rely on secondary evidences?
It's not secondary. It's not. One sec, bro.
1 second.
It's not secondary evidence.
1 second.
It's not secondary
He
evidence.
himself is the direct eyewitness to Jesus.
Wait, it is not. It is not. Listen. By the way, 1 sec, my friend. So, firstly, it's not second-hand information he's relying on. Second-hand information.
For the baptism of John.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Because he's
Baptism of
taking
Jesus.
from the people that
That's
were
a secondary
present.
source.
That's not a secondary source.
my goodness.
He's taken from the apostles. The apostles are a first-hand source.
What's your transmission?
The transmission are going to be the apostles that are present.
Name me.
Peter,
Name me. Out the top.
Andrew.
Name me.
Okay. Jesus, Andrew, and you want names of?
What's your evidence? No.
My evidence is that he's recording it, and that Peter knew these people.
Look. Imagine if I claim the Quran that we have today is received through the companions. What would be your natural question? I want the names of particular companions.
No, it's like saying, for example.
No. You're not going to cut me off.
Well, you keep on cutting me off throughout this discussion.
So we're going to do each other. No
Okay,
problem.
great. So it's like saying, for
here's the claim.
example,
Here's the claim.
that
Here's the
you
claim
have
I'm gonna
events
make.
within the Quran and
Here's the
Christ.
claim I'm
You don't have
gonna
Christ writing the
Here's the claim I'm
Quran.
gonna make.
Therefore, you have people that knew the events of Christ
Here's the
and they
claim
write the
I'm
Quran,
gonna make.
i.e. Allah.
I claim that the Quran that we have today is transmitted back to the companions of the Prophet. What would you ask?
So, my analogy is just going to be one sec, bro. Let me just respond.
What would you ask?
Can I respond? So, firstly, your assertion that this is a second-hand source to which Peter is pulling from when he's writing on the baptism of Christ is incorrect. A second-hand source is simply a contemporary that has knowledge of people that saw this event. Now, Peter was receiving his information from the apostles on the baptism of Christ, for example, Christ himself and Andrew, and they are first-hand accounts. So he is simply transmitting to Mark the information on his baptism. Secondly, if you read Eusebius's account on Mark, it says the sayings or the narrative of Christ transmitted through people.
Not narrative.
He says or, he does not say and. So, where are the two propositions that contradict within Eusebius's writings of the account of Matthew and Mark?
Right. What is the difference between primary evidence and secondary evidence?
Primary evidence is just going to be the people that saw the event.
And did Peter saw the baptism of Jesus?
Peter is writing and giving. Okay, fantastic.